Unfortunately, that fell to me. I mean, that was in 1969. I mean, we'd asked Reggie Ainsworth, who was chief controller then of CRO, to come to our dinner, our annual dinner, which, as it turned out, was in the Georgian Dragon at Dent, and he was the guest speaker. As it turned out, Reggie didn't turn up, so we were a bit dismayed, but we sort of carried on with the dinner. And that was it, you know. Towards the end of the dinner, I got a call to the phone, and it was the police at Settle, and said, look, we've had Reg on, and it's absolutely essential that you need to get yourself together and come over to Mere Gill. We've got this guy to the entrance and we can't get him out because it's flooded. And we can't get him out through the other entrance because it's too narrow and he's in a stretcher. Luckily, at the dinner were obviously several friends of mine. Two in particular was a chap called John Southworth, who I'd dived with on several occasions, and another guy who had a hang me hat on was called Pete Livesey, who, as it turned out, eventually was a world-class, top-class climber. And so they came along with us, and we met eventually, after driving through deep snow and goodness knows what else. We eventually met in Chapelly Dale near the Hill Inn, threw all our kit into the back of a CRO Land Rover, which then proceeded to get stuck halfway between the road and Mere Gill entrance. So the three of us had to carry all our equipment to the entrance, and of course there at the entrance was this big tent with Reg and everybody else huddled in there in freezing conditions, because the snow was down, and of course they're trying to keep warm around several heaters. So we were completely, if you like, steaming by that time, having carried all this gear to the entrance. So we eventually got kitted up, got down the entrance. Pete hadn't got all his diving kit with him, so he elected to stop in the mere and hold at the end of the diving rope. So I took one end of the diving rope through to the patient and found him in the streamway awaiting our arrival. Of course, he was extremely cold. The rest of the cave rescuers then that were there, that were with him, disappeared out through the entrance, the other entrance, and John and I, were then left with this guy to get him out. And as it turned out, I mean, it wasn't very difficult. It was only a relatively short dive, but nonetheless, the biggest problem we had was that it was snow melt water, so it was absolutely freezing. So we brought him out underwater with a full face mask on, and retrieved him, and the doctor examined him, and he was still alive, but unfortunately, hypothermia was really at the far end of him, and he died on the way over the fell to the entrance to the Land Rover. Crackpot Cave in Swaledale, where a young man and his girlfriend had gone into the cave, right to the back end of the cave and up into a boulder choke, climbed up into this boulder choke, and he put himself into a crawl. For some reason best known to him, he decided to slide in on his back. He hadn't got a body's length in to this flat out crawl at the top of this boulder choke, and the roof fell on him. As it turned out, it was several flat slabs of limestone, big flags of limestone. I arrived rather late because it wasn't in our area and I got something else to do, but I arrived rather late. And as soon as I got there, Harry Long and Chris Baker, who were in charge of the incident, sort of grabbed me by one hand and said, "Oh, here, we found somewhere for you to sleep," which at the time I never thought too much about. But what they wanted to do was to make damn sure I was available, I guess, should this thing progress more than they'd anticipated, which it did. I mean, eventually the lads that were in there done a tremendous job, and they propped everything up with either with fire service jacks, car jacks, you name it, lumps of wood and a lot, and props, acros. They jacked everything up so that when I eventually was accosted from my bed by Harry and sort of saying, look, you know, you need to go and have a look at this. They think they can't get him out. Of course, by which time I was thinking, it must be serious. Of course, knowing the lads that have been working in there. So I went in along with another chap called Bob Emmett. And between the pair of us, when we got there, eventually, you know, there was a certain amount of, and no names, no pack drill. I mean, there was a certain amount of shaking heads, and I thought, this must be pretty serious. So we climbed up through this mess of jacks and lumps of wood and you name it. It was really quite hairy, just looking at all this stuff all propped up. We got up into the top of the crawl, and this guy's feet were stuck out in front of us. And Bob and I had a discussion, and sort of we could see from looking at it that yes, we were right. It was just slabs, big slabs of limestone, like paving flags almost, but limestone. And so we sort of set to, shouted for a crowbar and a lump hammer and so on and so forth, and managed, because they were what they were, to split them into slabs that we could manage. So we bashed them and crowbarred them and split them into slabs and actually dragged them off him. So eventually, when the last slab came off, which was barely one I could handle, was that big, we dropped it down to the lads below, down through the boulder choke. I mean, this guy came out of there, you'd thought he'd had a rocket up his arse. He came out of there that quick. And down the crawl, through the climb, we helped him down. Yeah, so we managed to eventually to pass him down through this lot. And when we got to the bottom, there was this huge cheer went up. You know, you thought we'd just scored a goal. And of course we realised then that these guys could hear down below, the lads that had actually propped all this boulder choke up, could hear what we were doing and understand what the position we were in. And I mean, they were just so grateful when we got him down there. And in fact, eventually we recovered him out of the cave, and he survived to tell the tale. Dozens and dozens of animal rescues. I think probably one that always springs to mind, and it's amazing how you sort of, in particular instances, come up with all sorts of ideas and ingenuity. And this particular incident I can relate to, which is rather different, was at Ribble Head, in the gully at the start of the River Ribble. If you ever have a chance to go there and look, it's a deep limestone rift with a stream flowing in the bottom, start of River Ribble. And in that, we got a phone call at sort of 11:30 at night with a farmer who was pretty desperate. It turned out he got a bullock. He was claiming it was a prize bullock worth a lot of money, and we weren't to sort of dispute that. So of course we then turned out the team, we went up there, quite a few of us, and the Land Rover. And of course there's this bullock stuck down in the rift. We couldn't get it to, there was no way that we could persuade it to climb out, up and walk out of the rift, so we decided that what we had to do was haul it out. Now I guess what we could have done these days was actually use the tractor right to the edge of the gully, and with something on and a bucket, and actually finish up with some ropes and tethers and goodness knows what else to haul it. We had to improvise, and we're stuck with this thing. So if you've ever tried to haul something that's quite heavy, like a bullock, didn't want to come up with ropes, of course you can haul it up right to the edge of the sharp edge, if you like, here. It was coming up here, so he was hauled up to there, but of course hauling him over the top there was very difficult. You couldn't do it because there's this bloody massive weight. Now do you lift it, that remaining bit, unless you had some sort of bucket? So what we did, we were thinking, how, you know, you're thinking really fast, thinking, what the hell can we do this? So what we did, we fastened 2 caving ladders to the front bumper of the Land Rover, which was parked quite close by. We put the 2 caving ladders down the side of the rift, down to the bottom, and of course the bullock stood there. We then persuaded it to get close by. We got hold of the ends of the ladders and pulled it underneath the cow and up, and then fastened ropes to the ends of the ladders. So you've now got both ends of the ladders underneath the cow, fastened at this top, and we hauled the ends of the ladders up. So what effectively we did, we rolled the cow upside down in the ladder so it reached the top, and we were able then, of course, to be able to pull it, and it rolled over the top. It's probably not a very good description. It would be very interesting to do a sketch to show you exactly what happened, but that's a particular instance. I mean, dealing with sheep, sheep are notorious, especially in ground caves, because they always go hunting for the elusive piece of grass. I've lost track of how many sheep we must have rescued, hundreds and hundreds of sheep. Sometimes they're quite grateful, sometimes they're not, and they jump off and pay the ultimate penalty. Cote Gill, well, I didn't actually go on that rescue, so it's a bit difficult. I know what it was about. It was about two cavers who actually went into Cote Gill cave, descended a pitch into the main chamber, and there was a sump leading off from it, and they decided, one of whom was a policeman and had a private use explosives licence, decided to place a large charge of explosive over the sump with the intentions of bringing the roof down and widen it so they could get through. In actual fact, what they did, they had an explosion down there. They went to see what sort of damage, if you like, had occurred, and because of the manner of the explosion, they succumbed to the fumes from the explosives, and in fact they were both dead at the top of the pitch. They managed to climb up the ladder pitch that they descended, but then because of the intake of the fumes from the explosives, they just died almost on top of one another. There was one incident which was a non-caver, which for all sorts of reasons was told to crawl into the top of the tunnel in the dark without a light, and unfortunately there's a little passageway and then a vertical shaft, and he tragically fell down that shaft and was killed. The outcome was that, of course, his parents gave the Dr. Farrer and the Ingleborough estate a great deal of grief about the fact that they should have had suitable notices up warning people, and you have to say, I had a lot of sympathy with Dr. Farrer because, where do you stop? Where do you stop putting notices up, especially, around caves and cliffs? We've got enough notices around the roads without having to start festooning fells, warning people about the dangers. When you leave the beaten track, you expect to be aware and make yourself aware and be suitably careful about the hazards that there are. A party of cavers had abseiled down Jib Tunnel, and in the process of abseiling down, 6 of them, 4 of them went out through Bar Pot, and 2 decided that they should come back up Jib Tunnel. So the first experienced guy prossicked up the rope until there was a re-belay, and he had difficulty getting past the re-belay in the same way they'd had difficulty getting past the re-belay on the way down. So what he'd said to his companion was, when he came up to the ledge, look, I climb up and I'll remove the re-belay so that you've just got a straight rope to prussic up, but you must wait until I've pulled up the rope so there's just a straight rope that you can get on and prussic up. So really that's what should have happened. In fact, it didn't happen because the guy who was the inexperienced chap was sat on the ledge, and by this time was getting cold. There was snow melt water falling down the shaft as well, which didn't help. And of course he then, before the guy, the leader, had chance to redeploy the re-belay as a straight rope, he got on the rope and of course proceeded to start and prussic up. So the guy at the top, his companion, wasn't in a position to help at all. When he reached what had been the re-belay, the knot, he found it was 26 inches long. And under normal circumstances, an unexperienced guy would find a great deal of difficulty trying to prussic past a knot 26 inches long. As a result of this incident, the coroner was obviously concerned about why this happened, and we made, Phil Pappard and I, along with some help from Bob Mackin, we made a suitable video to demonstrate to the coroner what had actually happened, what had happened to him and the problem that he had, and how it should have actually been re-belayed for him to get past with a certain amount of ease. Well, I dressed myself up in exactly the same way that this guy had.
Did you?
The second guy, yeah. And demonstrated to the coroner what had happened, and sort of said, this is how he finished up, this is how we found him at the knot. But in actual fact, had he had sufficient experience, this is what he should have done, or he could have done. But it is possible, and I demonstrated for the coroner how to get past this bloody red long knot.
Yeah.
And then we re-rigged it all and set it up as it should have done, and Phil then put proper caving kit on, oversuits, gloves, hood up and the lot. And of course the prussic up through ice, and that's what killed the guy basically. He's prussicking up, got stuck at the knot, and of course very quickly he died. He couldn't redescend. He didn't have the nonce to how to redescend from where he came, which he could have done. So he's there in this bloody rainfall, a heavy rainfall. It wasn't an absolute bloody waterfall, but it was like heavy rain. And of course the heavy rain wasn't just normal rain like you get around it. It was snow melt. So it was bloody cold. So he'd no insulation. So of course his body got wet through. And of course once his body got wet, well, you lose heat 26 times quicker in water than you do in air. Remember that. You get in some cold bloody water, you could be in deep trouble.